Falling in love is scary. Sure, you get to build a beautiful partnership with someone you love for the rest of your life. But if you go all in, things could change. You could get hurt, or your partner could leave you. This is me and my wife the first night we met 17 years ago at a nightclub in New York City. We now have 2 beautiful kids and an amazing life in Southern California. But this fear of getting hurt holds me back from loving her fully. So I went on a psychedelic journey to figure out what I'm so scared of. And what I learned is that truly loving someone is an act of surrender. It takes courage to truly go inward, and life adventures don't have to stop when you have young kids. Before we jump in, I want to say this is not an endorsement for psychedelics. We worked with very trained facilitators in a very controlled environment. Please do your research before you jump into this type of activity. So we arrive at this house. It's 4 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon in LA. And all that we know is that there's going to be a group of 12 people doing this guided psychedelic journey together with a bunch of facilitators. Now, from what we know from our last thing, it's probably you're really kind of in it for 5, 6, 7 hours, like not functioning like coherently as a human. And so then you're going to spend the night at this house, and then you wake up, you eat, you kind of, they call it integration, and then you leave the next morning. So for us with the young kids, we've got to do a lot of planning, babysitters, making sure the kids are all set. All they know is that we're going, we call it a therapy session, like a therapy intensive session. We tell our kids that we're working with therapists on our marriage. They're 10 and 7, as you know. And so we're off. So we walk into this house in LA, and it's this massive, but like kind of what you would picture to be a hippie's house. Like there's just all these decorations and tchotchkes and art and mantras. And this house has this big garden. It's an old house, but it's huge. And there's all these different rooms and couches and beds and pillows and throws and all that. And then you're meeting all the participants as you come in. Like I said, we had no idea. The first time we did the psychedelic journey, it was just the 2 of us with the 2 coaches. And this time it was going to be 12 people with a bunch of coaches. We didn't know how much, but the 2 that we had worked with were going to be there. So you bring an overnight bag, you bring an eye mask, you bring a bunch of layers. You know that there's an outdoor spot. You bring some snacks, although they encourage you not to eat. And just so you know, going into this psychedelic work, you actually have to prepare before. So like the week leading up to it, what is it? Like no caffeine, no alcohol, no weed. Try not to watch any violence on TV. I've been watching The Sopranos, so I didn't watch that for a week. And then you had to fill out this intake form, which was around what are your intentions for this? Like, what do you want to get out of this? And it asks you about different forms of trauma, what kind of inner work you've done so far. And so in my intake form, the thing that I said is that I have this struggle in seeing my own goodness. And what I mean by that is I do very much feel that my goodness, like in myself, is earned. Like I have to be a good person. I have to be hardworking. I have to be all these things. And if I am those things, then people will see me as good. And so what happens is if I don't, it's a very exhausting way to be because, there's a real conflict there. And the conflict is that you don't feel like you're fundamentally good at your core, right? And I've done a lot of work on trying to understand that, attachment therapy, internal family systems, different types of life coaching. I've gotten closer, but these are kind of like these like core fundamental beliefs that are kind of imbued in you from some point in your life that you can't just think your way out of it. That's one thing that I've learned in this journey is you can't just think your way out of this. The example I often use is if someone gets really worried about money, and let's say they're rich, you can't just give them a bunch of spreadsheets that like, well, if the market's down 50%, you'll be fine. Or if you double your spending, you'll be fine. No, if you're scared of, like, if you have a primal fear of running out of money, like no fucking spreadsheet is going to make that go away. So that's similarly where I am in this question of Khe's internal goodness. And as it relates specifically to my relationship with my wife, Lisa, is that I get very defensive when she criticizes me. And in any marriage, you're going to criticize your partner either overtly, like, I wish you had emptied the dishwasher, or it's more passive, as in, why didn't you do that? Or why is this happening, right? Or it could even be the way someone looks at you. And so I get really defensive when that happens. And then I kind of snap back because it's like, what, are you saying I'm not a good person? Right? And then I guess if I really play that out, it's, am I a good person? And if I'm not, then you're going to withhold love from me, or you're going to leave me, or something like that. And again, I don't believe that. Like, my brain doesn't believe that, but my heart fears that. And I think this is like one of the powerful work, even if you don't want to do psychedelics, like somatic healing, which is when you get into your body. It's different than talk therapy. I found to be so powerful because I think that I can kind of manipulate talk therapy a little bit, because I can lie. I can lie to myself, basically. And when I lie to myself, I can lie to the therapist. And sometimes I don't even realize that I'm lying, but it's just this instinct to be seen a certain way because I want to see myself a certain way. Okay, back to the journey. So we're at this house, 4:00. I have this intention, and then they ask you to bring an item, and there's like an altar. So again, it's like some hippy dippy type shit. But it's what's cool is that the people there, like, you might be listening to this, it's like a bunch of woo-woos, or it's a bunch of junkies, or it's a bunch of people that want to party, or it's a bunch of people that are trying to escape their lives. Bro, why did I just say bro? Bro, it couldn't be more different than that. These are people of all ages, and I'm going to not speak about their experiences, but they're all different ages, and they're all seeking something in their life. And many of them have been seeking for decades, right? And again, it can be in any aspect of of one's life, marriage just being one of the many, many different ways. So there's this altar, and you bring to this altar an object that is kind of reflective of your intention for, they call it journeys, for this journey. And so the object that I brought is, we have this picture of Lisa and I, and it was actually snapped by my friend Steve and Karen, who might be listening. And it's a picture of us when we first met in December of 2007, so 17 years ago. It's, to put some context, it was taken with one of those flip disposable cameras, and we still have that picture. We're both wasted at the nightclub Pasha in Midtown Manhattan, not the cool one in Ibiza. And so it just captures that moment, the first day that we met 17 years ago. We've been married for 12. And I brought that because part of this intention that I have to get to understand why I don't feel that I'm good is because I want to show up differently as a husband. I don't want to always have this natural defensive instinct. So we go around the room, and each person is asked their experience, what their weather is like, describe their emotion as a weather, using a weather metaphor. And so the way I described it was a brisk morning where there's dew in the air and in the grass, but the sun's not out yet. So there's a lot of briskness and crispiness to the sensation, but there's still a lot of mystery. And that is what I felt. Like, was I scared? No, I wasn't scared. But you definitely, in this type of experience, you are forced to confront some of the things about yourself that you might have buried. And I guess I'm not scared to do that because I've done it without any psychedelics a while. So I know I have a general understanding of the landscape of what makes Khe uncomfortable and sad and scared, and having done it before. So that was the intention that I set. And so then you do a little bit of talking, getting to know one another. And then you take the heart opener, they call it, which is MDMA. So you take this MDMA, and I don't know the whole kind of science and process and thinking behind it, But from my perspective, MDMA is a very kind of, they call it the heart opener, and it's a lot of bliss, right? I mean, that's why MDMA is such a popular party drug. It's hard to have a bad trip on MDMA. You feel very happy, you feel very blissful, you kind of let your inhibition down. You feel very loving. And, a lot of the words that were coming out were, I'm seeking joy. I want to connect deeper to my own love. I really believe that there is a deeper kind of like a deeper love amongst humanity, so to speak. Again, I can recognize that it's probably a little bit of woo being thrown at you. So you take the heart opener, and then you're just kind of chilling, right? Hey, quick time out. If you're watching this video, you're probably someone who thinks deeply and intentionally about your career, about your life, and about your relationships. But sometimes you might find yourself in a place feeling stuck, unmotivated, or just rudderless. If that's you, we have a coaching program for people looking to make a bold pivot and rediscover their aliveness. Just check out radreads.co/coaching. Now back to the video. Everyone's got an eye mask. And I think this is an important point, is that you're encouraged, at least for some part of it, to have the whole experience just with a sleeping mask on, sitting in a chair. Most people are laying, and you're just laying there and you're just with your thoughts. But, I would argue kind of the purest, rawest, unfiltered nature of your thoughts, which of course can be a terrifying experience if you don't want to know your true thoughts, right? So you take the heart opener, and it's just very just light and joyful. And while we were there, we were talking with some of the people we had met around a fire pit. There's music playing. There's 4 facilitators. They're checking in. They're reminding you to drink water. There's lots of blankets. It's very, very cozy, and it's nighttime, right? I mean, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock p.m. by then, but it's dark outside. And it's a cool LA fall evening. And so that people are starting to connect. And, one of the people I connected with was a person who's a man. There were mostly women and 3 guys. And one of the men that I connected with was also a father. It turned out all the men that were there were fathers. And so we were just connecting over just the experience of being girl dads. He was another girl dad. So that is happening. And probably, I would guess, you start to really lose track of time, which is kind of cool. And that story resurfaces. But about probably an hour or 90 minutes later, then you take the first dose of psilocybin. I think it differs per people, but the dose that I took was 3 grams. So you chug it, and then they really encourage you at that point to kind of go off on your own, and not necessarily put your eye mask on, but that's what a lot of people did to really, like, they had that right when it hits, you have this kind of, you drop in, they call it. And you want to really be, everyone there was trying to resolve something in themselves, in their lives. And so you don't want to be just like socializing and just like chit-chatting with others. Not that that's a bad thing, to drop in. So I get my mask, and actually Lisa and I had decided to be apart. And this is like the cool thing. There's all these rooms, and there's 12 people, 4 of us, there's 16 people kind of spread out across this house. Some of them knew each other. We didn't know anyone there except for the 2 facilitators. And it's just it's really weird at first, but very magical that like 12 people, it's like the real world. Like, what happens when you put 12 strangers in a house? And so, the 12 people that are just, they're seeking, right? There are 12 people that are really seeking. And again, I think this type of, and I would have had this judgment about this type of community before entering it. It'd be like, oh, it's just a lot of druggies or a lot of escapism or just like Burning Man folks. And I'm sure Burning Man didn't come up once. I'm sure some people there have been to Burning Man. I've never been, but I have nothing against it. But what was really cool is like people want to know themselves. Like that is why people are there. They want to know themselves at the truest level. The good, the bad, the ugly, the weird, the strange, the confusing. They want to fucking know themselves. Like think about the people that are around you at your work and your community. your friends, your family. Like, how many people really at their core want to understand themselves, right? So, okay, so I put the mask on. I go onto this air mattress by the like in this garden. I'm by myself. It's cold. I mean, it's probably like 58. I've got 3 blankets over me. This eye mask on. I'm just laying down, and I could just like start feel my body. Like last time it happened, like it was like kind of like convulsing a lot, and it's really interesting. It's something that I'm observing, kind of like vibrating a lot. And I bet if I had a heart rate monitor, it was like through the roof, sweating, but all good. Like very chill, but it's just interesting for someone like me who's very kind of type A, very intense, to watch how that intensity plays out when you're connecting with this part of yourself, right? And so a lot of shaking, sweats, and pretty quickly into it, like hardcore hallucinations start up. And it was cool. I mean, it's funny because in hindsight, it kind of reflects my aesthetic. Like my hallucinations are like the art that I like to see. And so, so for example, the imagery was very like neon-y, a mix of, this is a mix of like, if you ever seen like Trolls 2, like when they go down into like the Ozzy Osbourne part at the beginning, at the end. So like kind of cavernous, but then there was a lot of like Murakami. So if you've ever seen Kanye West album, not the one after College Dropout, with all like the colors and like the big Mickey Mouse thing with all like pink and purple and neon. So Murakami is a Japanese artist. A lot of Murakami, like a lot of like Pharrell's aesthetic, like Pharrell in the new Lego movie. If you know the brand Psycho Bunny, they have like these like kind of skeletons, but it's like a bunny, like a cute bunny. So kind of like this like Japanese neon-y dark aesthetic, which is actually funny. I think it's a lot like the band Justice, a lot of like electronic music vibes. So it's kind of a funny thing is that a lot of my experience with these different types of substances are from nightclubs, and like you put a mask on me and I'm like seeing a nightclub. And so it was just like cool and vibey, and it was like definitely like a party. Like I was in a party mode. But again, I'm laying by myself, not even with my wife, on this air mattress in a garden with an eye mask on under 3 blankets. And I'm like, I'm partying, I'm convulsing. And I wonder what that is. I do think that there is, like at this age, I do feel like there is this like high energy intensity that is starting to move through my body and not really like serve me anymore. I think that intensity was amazing for my 20s and my 30s, but just like very noisy and loud music and always moving quickly. I feel like something in that phase of me is slowly starting to dissipate. And I think that like wild was me trying to wrestle with that. And so this beautiful kind of scenery, and it was loud and all this colors and stuff. And then it was weird because it would go from it was a lot like, you know, the song November Rain from Guns N' Roses, where it's like, you know, this like classic metal rock ballad, and then it switches to the part with the violins, you know, that like dun, 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 in the cold November rain, right? Like that part, probably like around like minute 7 or 8. I actually need to go listen to the song after that. But there was like that like rock intense part, and then the ballady part, and then it's like rock intense part, and then this ballady part. And in the ballady part was when I would start to see things. And then at the first one was, and this is really fresh. This happened 2 days ago. I'm probably still, I mean, definitely like not normal K. I'm not high or anything. But during the ballady part, I kept saying like, Lisa is my soulmate. Lisa is my soulmate. And it was like, it can sound super trite to say that out loud, but I promise you, dead sober, I have never said those words in my life. And I probably would never say them because I don't think I connect with, I don't think I have those words in me when I'm just going through my everyday life. I think I'm a little too serious, a little too separate from people. I think I'm a little too, I can be emotionally detached. I do, for the way that you guys see me as this kind of guy who pours his soul out on these podcasts, I can be very emotionally disassociative and very emotionally detached. And you guys don't see that. In fact, I sometimes wonder if it's so much easier to have this conversation with a camera and like the faceless internet than to have it with my wife, because there's much less intimacy in doing it this way than to say to her, "You're my soulmate," right? And so I kept just saying, like, Lisa is my soulmate. She's my soulmate. And as she's saying this, there's this like, again, like I'm gonna get all trippy on you guys, but it was like kind of felt like I think it's like the Guns N' Roses cross. Like I guess Guns N' Roses was really present here. I'm not even a real Guns N' Roses fan, but the cross from the early Guns N' Roses t-shirts, and then there were like these two like snaking neon lights. Like one was green and one was purple, and it was almost like these, like our souls were fusing, right? And I just kept saying to myself, Lisa, I don't even know if I was saying it out loud or in my head, because I would have no point of reference. I'm just like, Lisa's my soulmate. Lisa's my soulmate. Lisa's my soulmate. And I think that as that was happening, I think that the reason that I would never tell Lisa that she's my soulmate is that I think I'm probably too scared, or I don't want to believe that, because it's too scary to think about what if that is wrong, right? And I don't even know what wrong means. Like, does she not think I'm her soul? Does do I love her more than she loves me? Does she not feel that way about me? What if something happens to her one day? What if we're not? Like I don't even know. But I think that what I see, and I don't even think I saw it then, but what I saw after, and I'm actually seeing now, and I explained this to Lisa just this morning, but I think that what I'm seeing is that there's these different planes of love, right? Like you love a family member, you love a friend. Like there is this love, like it's real love. It's almost like the in-person love. Like I love you, and then I think there's this like other well of love that is just like this true embodiment of like every fiber in your existence, right? And I know that I am scared to love anyone in that capacity, because that's fucking vulnerable, right? Because if you're willing to love someone with that, and like with every fiber in your body, the first place my mind goes, they could rip that away from you. And then what's left? Right? And I definitely operate. I'm a very loving person, but I have like somewhere in my love, there's this barrier where it's like, don't let them come there, because that's the part they can rip out of you. Right? And then what's left of you. Right? And I think that for me, I didn't realize this. I'm only realizing this now, is that like, that's a very vulnerable act to give yourself to love in that way, right? And guess who's the only people who do that naturally, right? Children. Children give they love, especially young children, but just children, they just love their caretakers just with every bone in their body, right? Young kids especially. And if you think about, why doesn't an adult do that? Like, to me, and maybe I don't want to speak on your behalf, but that feels scary. That feels very vulnerable. Like, what if it goes wrong, right? It's hard to think of like things going wrong. Maybe little kids, that's the innocence of it, is like, they're not thinking about what can go wrong. And so they just love you, right? And so that was like this first breakthrough. Then I kind of go back to the techno part. and they actually bump me up. So they start you off with 3 grams, and then they bump you up if you want, if you're like in a good place, they bump you up with another one, and then another one if you want. So I got up to 5 grams, which probably in hindsight is a lot. So the hallucinations come back. They're very, very vivid again. And this playful, in both of my journeys, there's this fear, like, what, like, do I really want to know who I am? Like at my core, right? Like think of it, like, do you really want to know who you are at your core? Like every part of you, every part, right? Do you want to know that? And to me, the answer is yes. I wouldn't be on this life path if it was no, but it's still scary. The first time I was like scared and I saw what I was so scared of. And the thing I was so scared of is I said to myself, okay, what are you so scared of? You're just a big squishy love ball, right? You just love people freely, and you're optimistic and kind and loving. That's why is that scary, right? And it was kind of cool to see that in my own way, right? This time, the squishy love ball was manifested in another way, which is just outright silly. And the silliness was out of nowhere. I was thinking about the Taylor Swift Eras tour. You know how it's like a meme. I'm in my hot girl era. I'm in my this, and one of the facilitators came up to me and she goes, "How you feeling?" And I just turned around and I said, "I'm in my yummy era. I'm in my yummy era, baby." And there's like a woman in her 70s that I'm telling her this, and she's just like encouraging me. And again, saying it out loud, it's like kind of wild, but at the same time, there was just this playfulness to it all. I'm like, wow, I can be 45 and play. I want to be 65 and play. I want to be 85 and play, and not just play like run around and wrestle, but just have the playful esprit de corps, right? Spirit of soul, right? And I think that was what was very cool for me in this experience, was like, I was seeing these playful parts that maybe I'm just scared of them going away or dying or being gone. Yeah, just not being a part of me. And I want to keep that for my whole life. And maybe that's what I was seeing, is like, okay, this playfulness is in you. You are a silly ass motherfucker, even at 45, and it shows no signs of abating, right? You are in your yummy era. Right. So that was a fun part. At some point I started to take my mask off. And again, it was weird because you could start to see the other people. Some people were starting to hang out together. I was a little intimidated. And this is something that I wonder about the next time I do this, is I kind of wanted to be by myself, but I didn't know if I wanted to be by myself because it was so comforting to be by myself, or because I felt safe being alone. And like, if I went out, someone might be like, "Oh, you're really messed up," or, "Oh, I don't even know what they would say." It was such a loving group of people that I know they wouldn't say that. People are very attuned to that. But I think that there was a safety in that isolation. Then it went back to one of the more mellow, subdued, kind of beautiful parts. And it was, and again, it came back to Lisa. And it was just, again, you just start saying these things to yourself. And I have no idea if I'm saying them out loud or in my head. Like, you just don't know, which is kind of cool. But I was just saying, I was like, I just love her. Right. And what was going through my mind is I was just replaying all of the little fights and skirmishes and patterns and tensions that we have. And again, they're not that bad. They're not like divorce breakup worthy material, but they're there, right? And you want to imagine a world where they're not there, right? And I think what we have learned is, like, a lot of times they're there is because of something we're feeling inside, right? So a perfect example is, if I feel like I'm not worthy of love, and Lisa might say something to me and I feel like she's attacking me. She's not attacking me, but I feel like she's attacking me. Then I'm going to naturally snap back at her. And then that's hurtful to her. So, like, all these patterns. And I was just like, what it made me see is, like, at the end of the day, it's just so simple, right? I just love her. That's how simple it was. I just love you. That's it. And like everything else, and I think it's going to be really, it would be interesting to see is like as we move away for this is the powerful thing about these journeys is when you see these things, it's like watching an insanely moving movie. Like you'll never forget this scene years later, right? And I think that's why it's scary because it's like, what if the thing you see is not the thing you didn't want to see? But you can never unsee that stuff, right? I still remember all the details from the first one, like even like what I was wearing, right? It's just so vivid. And so that it was just like, through all, it just kind of in that one moment, it just distilled everything to like, I just love her. I just love you. And eventually she met up with me and I just like was holding her and I was just telling her, it was like, I just love you. Like it's, when we go through all this stuff, like, I just want you to know, I just love you. And I'm getting a little choked up saying that. And it was interesting too, as I was holding her, she was like morphing into my two daughters, right? It was just this like beautiful thing because it was like she was like cuddled on me the way that my daughters cuddle on me, and it was like we were just all one together. It was also interesting with the gentleman who had the other daughters is I just kept asking him. It was like, what is it like? Tell me what it's like. And his girls were older, and he just had this. I just like was looking. It was probably this like really powerful metaphor. I was just like looking for him to give me like, what's it like when they get phones? What's it like when they get boyfriends? What's this? What's that? Tell me this. What do I need to be doing now? And his advice, it had come over the course of the night, was like, hey, it's like I don't have the answers. He's like, you just love them, right? And it was such a apt metaphor that it's like the very specific answers, like what, like how old, like literally I wanted to know, like how old were your girls when you gave them a phone? And I mean, I'm sure he told me, but it was like, that wasn't the point. The point is that I can't give you the answers. I don't have the answers, even though my kids are, much older than yours, or a bit older than yours. And it's like, you just love them. So that was then so that was the next part. Then a few other kind of wild party flashes. I was just kind of laughing at myself because I wanted to know like what was I supposed to be doing? Because at this point, this is probably 3 hours into it, maybe 3 hours or so. I don't have a clock. No one has watches. And I'm just like, you're hearing people. Some people are just hanging out. Some people are crying in a corner. Some people are throwing up. And everyone's safe because these 4 facilitators, they're just like working the room like this most amazing way. So you never feel unsafe. You never feel like you're losing control. And like, that's the thing, is when you start to lose control, they come sit with you. Sometimes they come talk to you. They're like, hey, is there anything you want to share with me? And, for me, it was just like really fucking silly stuff. I'm like, yes, I have something really important to share with you. I'm in my yummy era, that kind of stuff. That's where I was at. And a lot of others were having much more serious and different experiences. So then you kind of like coalesce, and people, start to like, it's like, you're not exactly sure when you sober up, but like, everything starts to become less intense. You become more reflective. You're definitely not sleepy. People start to congeal. Some people start to go to sleep. And so it was just this like, almost like this college house with, all these people from all these different walks of life. Some people are sleeping. Some people are laughing. Some people are telling jokes. Some people are sad. Some people are writing in their journals. Like, it really is. And like, I'm trying to fall asleep. I was actually not able to fall asleep the whole night. And I think that interesting part is, I think all of it is part of the experience. Like, obviously there's the part when you're really on deep in your journey, but there's the build up to it. There's the come down. There's the days. They tell you that it takes, sometimes people are learning the messages for weeks and months after it happens. Like, the one that I'm starting to really appreciate was what I said earlier is like, there's this, I didn't realize it while it was happening, but there's this deeper plane of love that is very scary for me to go to because I'm terrified of being abandoned in that phase. So you can stay, but like, imagine a world where the two people are just ready to go there, right? I don't know what that looks like, but that door has been open. And that's something that I can no longer unsee. So, where does that leave us now? I think that, I think it's really cool to be able to do something like this with the person you love. Just A, that she wants to, like, and B, that it's kind of a thing we get to do together. That's really special. And, just being around people, again, of all phases of life, some who are much older, some who are younger, not that many who are younger, just like on this commitment. And like, this is just a part of their broader commitment to seeking, a lot of meditators, a lot of people, reading and investigating sacred texts, a lot of people going through a lot of different life challenges. So it just feels really special to have this with your partner. And, one of our family values is adventure. And I think it gets harder to adventure when you have young kids. Like, you can't just pick up and go. You have these firm roots. But what this process has shown me, and again, I don't know when I'll do it again for sure. I don't know. I don't feel called to right now, but I don't know, in my mind, it feels like a once a year type thing, give or take. Definitely want to do it again. And I want to do it again, in this type of environment where I feel very safe. And I want to do it with my wife, who is a part of this adventure. And yeah, that what it leads to is like, we are going on an adventure we're going on soul adventures here. Right. And again, she would describe her experience as very different, but what a gift to be able to go on a soul adventure in all different ways, not just this way, but through all the things that we have done in our lives, with our kids, without our kids, on our own, together, in New York, in LA, beyond, in spiritual ways, in pragmatic ways, just to be on this wavelength when you're on this similar adventure with your partner, with the ultimate, at least for me, what I'm seeing now is this ultimate goal of like, how do I truly, truly surrender into loving you in my fullest, most complete ways. Thank you.